Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we're breaking down the South Point 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on Sunday, September 27th at around 7 p.m. Eastern. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like. I know it's something as small as just leaving a like on a video, but the more you guys interact with my content, leaving likes, leaving comments, it's going to help me out, and I really do appreciate that, and you guys do a good job of that already. And if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button. Remember, all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players, which I know it's the playoffs, so you might be thinking the season's just about over, which technically it is, but we still run till around mid-November, then we start right back up again in early February. So it pretty much goes year-round. We just have a couple of months off in the winter months, which is fine because we have NFL to hold us over. But if you're going to keep coming back to the channel each and every single day or each and every single week, you might as well hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new videos. And if you don't follow me on social media, my handle's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. I'm at Pennell16 on Twitter, cpen16 over on IG. And if you want some more content over on Patreon, always much appreciated. We got 300 members, a little over 300 right now. You can hop into the Discord chat it up with all the people in there. They're nice. They will help you out, and they're just nice people overall, and I'll help you out as well. You can ask me questions, and we can talk some strategy, whatever you want to do. Or if you just want to come in and hang out, that works as well. And you get access into my entire NASCAR DFS data sheet, which that's pretty much every single thing you need for a race weekend. I have pretty much everything loaded here, and this is the only thing I use each and every single week, and it's been a pretty good season so far, so I mean, I like it. It's got the projections on there, the power rankings, the green flag speed cheat sheets, GPP driver exposures, and pretty much everything you need. Heat map, the last race at Las Vegas, the loop data there, the 2020 optimal lineups, the previous optimal lineups at Vegas, the past ownership at this back in February at that track, and then the year before, and then the starting position track stats, and a bunch of other stuff as well. It's all on the spreadsheet, which has pretty much every single thing you need. So if you're interested, links down below. If not, that's fine. Let's just get into the preview of this race. And as always, I got to mention a couple of things before we actually get into the preview. So for the live stream, I am not going to be doing a NASCAR live stream on Sunday to compete with NFL because, look, no one's watching a NASCAR live stream on Football Sunday, which I got to do some stuff for NFL anyway. So I think I'll do the live stream the day before on Saturday night, if that would work. I have no idea what time yet. It could be in the afternoon. It could be in the evening. It could be like 9 p.m. You guys can let me know in the comments. And if there's like a common theme of when you guys want the live stream on Saturday, please let me know, because I really have no idea when to do it for you guys. Probably later in the day, just so I have some more time to try to figure out ownership and whatnot. But if you guys have any like specific times, like I know I can't appease everybody, so I'm probably going to make some people upset picking a time, and I'll probably make some people happy picking a time. I realize that, but if you guys can just, in the comments below, let me know what time probably works best for you, and I'll try to take like a consensus on that, and I will try to appease the majority here. And so yeah, plan on the live stream being on Saturday instead of Sunday. And then if you guys want to get into the DK contest, which I'm going to slash to 50 people, because look, football is on Sunday. I realize a lot of people probably have most of their money in football, and we didn't even fill the last one. I think we were at like around 90 people, and it sucked that it didn't fill because I really look forward to that contest. And I got a lot of comments saying, did you cancel the contest? Why didn't it run? I always look forward to this, and I felt really bad, but couldn't do anything about it. I tried to get it filled, and it did not. So I'm just going to make it 50 people, first come, first serve, and if you're in, you're in. If not, I do apologize, but I want to make sure the contest fills. It's going to be $5. It pays out the top 20%. So if you guys are interested, just leave your DK username in the comments below. Say something nice, whatever you guys want with it. But I think that's pretty much it for all the housekeeping we got to do, and we're about 4 minutes in, so it's probably a good time to start the actual part of this video. So anyway, this is the South Point 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We recently ran here, I believe, on February 23rd. I think that's the exact date. So way back when, February seems so long ago, but this is Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It's a steep intermediate track, and it's 1.5 miles in length. It's also low tire wear, and there's going to be 267 laps, which means there's 200.25 Dominator points available, and there's really nothing special about this track. It's just a 1.5 mile track with low tire wear, and 1.5 mile tracks really aren't the most exciting in the world, but I actually like them for DFS purposes because we actually have a lot of data to use with them this weekend, because we've ran up plenty of intermediate tracks this year, which, like, when you go to tracks like Bristol and things like that, yeah, they're fun, but it's also a little bit tougher for DFS purposes, especially without practice, because We've only ran there a couple of times or even one time this season. It's also a very unique track, so you can't really compare it to others. This time at Las Vegas, we ran here prior in the season, and we ran at plenty of intermediate tracks this season. So the cars that were fast at those tracks are probably going to end up being fast again, so it kind of makes it just a little bit easier for DFS purposes. Not saying it's going to be an exact replica, but it's also nice that we at least have some information to use heading into the weekend. And since there's 200 Dominator points, it's not like you're going to need like 3 to 4 Dominators, so you can definitely focus a little bit more on the place differential plays than other weeks, like a Bristol, Dominators. At a track like this, you're going to want like 1 to 2 to even 3 Dominators. It just depends on your build, because there's some really good PD plays, like William Byron this week, that's pretty expensive. So say you could just go the Kevin Harvick route, who's on the pool, and you could just build a lineup like him and then just do straight PD plays if you think he leads the majority of this race and you don't think a second Dominator is going to be enough to pay off his salary. You could go that route. I think most lineups should probably have 2 Dominators, but you can also stretch that to 3 as well if you fade some of the PD plays. That's pretty much it for strategy. It's pretty much just a 2 Dominator build for the most part. You can stretch it to 3 if we want to get crazy and just go straight PD. You can use a 1 Dominator, but you at least have to have 1. But probably most of your lineup should have around 2. And I think that's it for the preview. I say we can get into the driver-by-driver breakdown at this point. And as always, it's usually Kevin Harvick up top, although sometimes it is Denny Hamlin, just depending on the slate. But Kevin Harvick, he's all the way up at 11,700. He is starting in the pole, making him one of the best Dominator plays on the entire slate. Is he super expensive? Sure, but if he comes out and leads 100, 200 laps, it's really not going to matter what his price tag is, and he certainly has that kind of upside. His numbers at Las Vegas are pretty good, and he ran here in the spring race, although it's technically still winter, I believe, on February 23rd. But he had the most laps led, and he was top 5 in average green flag speed. Indy typically runs pretty well here. He's got a recent win. He's got the the third best driver rating. I do apologize about that. And the most average laps led at 75.8, and the third most fast laps. Or actually the second most fast laps. So Kevin Harvick, he's obviously going to be elite play here. He's been fantastic at these types of tracks this season. So at the track type form, I have the intermediate tracks. I'm also grouping in tracks like Auto Club and Michigan and a couple of others. And then over here, I just have strictly 1.5 mile tracks. And Kevin Harvick has been elite in all of them. He's got the most laps led, some of the most fast laps, and just overall very strong numbers. So Kevin Harvick on the pole, he should be able to lead a good amount of laps. Now, there's obviously always an advantage to fading the pole sitter because things can happen where if they lose the lead on the competition caution, or because it's just not a real pole sitter because this is just how fast they were in the last race or how they finished. And things can change because if he doesn't unload fast, which I think he will, but we've seen some instances where the pole sitter doesn't even lead a lap and they just get shuffled back and they end up being pretty awful plays. But Kevin Harvick is a guy I can trust for the most part. And he's just been so strong all season. He's racked up 9 wins. He's got the best average green flag speed. So definitely like Kevin Harvick here in the pole. And I do trust him to be able to keep that lead and lead a good chunk of laps on Sunday night, or I guess technically we're in Vegas, so Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Brad Keselowski, 11,400. He is starting 12th, and this is a very good track for Team Penske. I have a lot of interest in all of the Team Penske cars. Now, I know I said that last weekend, and they did absolutely nothing at all, and they killed your launch for the most part, but hey, that's NASCAR. They just really struggle with long run speed. I think Keselowski lost his power steering. Ryan Blaney just straight up sucked, and then Joey Logano didn't do anything at all. But I do like Team Penske once again here, and Brad Keselowski is very good at Las Vegas. He's got an average finish of 4th, which is best of all drivers, averaging nearly 70 DraftKings points per race. He's got a recent win. He's got 4 top 5s. 6 top 10s. He hasn't led as many laps as Kevin Harvick, but 30.2 laps led per race, which is 4th best. 25.2 fast laps, which is 3rd best. And he's ran pretty well at these types of tracks this season. He's actually got the best average finish at the 1.5 mile tracks in 2020. Although Ryan Blaney, what is he at? He's at 7.3, so he's just edging out Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney has been by far the fastest car at the 1.5 mile tracks. And we'll get to Ryan Blaney in a little bit, but just know I do have some interest in him as well. But Brad Keselowski starting 12th, you get a little bit of PD upside as well. And I'd say he's a pretty decent pivot off of Kevin Harvick up top. Obviously, you can play them together. It's just very expensive because they're the 2 most expensive drivers on these slates. So you're going to have to go dumpster diving a little bit. But both are excellent plays. But I do like the PD upside we do get with Brad Keselowski. And he's been one of the fastest cars in average green flag speed this season at these types of tracks. And I think he's a pretty solid play. Now, Denny Hamlin at 11,000. He is starting 10th. And if there's one guy I'm probably going to be pretty low owned on, starting up in this 10K plus range, I think it's going to be Denny Hamlin, although I'm not going to full fade the guy because obviously he's having a fantastic season right up there with Kevin Harvick, but he doesn't typically run that well at Las Vegas. Like, he's only averaging 22.9 DraftKings points per race here, average finish of 16.2, running position of 13.7, driver rating of 81.9, 0 wins, 0 top 5s, which we definitely need a top 5 out of Hamlin at 11,000, and 0.7 laps led per race, 3.5 fast laps, only 2 top 10s, 3 top 15s. Although the thing is, this season at these types of tracks, he has ran very well, and earlier in the year, Homestead was a track that wasn't that great for Denny Hamlin, and he ended up being one of the best plays on these slates. So I'm not going to rule out Denny Hamlin for sure, but about all these guys in this group, I feel like he's my least favorite right now. Like Kyle Busch, I know he's starting second right beside Kevin Harvick, and I have a hard time seeing him being able to pass Kevin Harvick, but he's $1,000 cheaper, and he does run a little bit better here at Las Vegas. So Hamlin, he's the guy that kind of scares me at that price tag this weekend. I'm not going to full fade the guy, because he has been fantastic this season, especially these types of tracks. But his history at Las Vegas does give me a bit of concern. I still think he's going to have a solid race, but I just don't really see him dominating, which makes him interesting in tournaments because I feel like other people have the same thought process, which, look, it would not surprise me if he gets up front and does well. It's just Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick have pretty much been the story of the season, so I have no reason to believe that can't happen again. So don't full fade him, but he's like my least favorite guy in this range. But Martin Truex Jr., 10,600, he is starting 11th, and I love Truex. Every time we go to a 1.5 mile track, Truex is going to be on my radar because this is his bread and butter. He crushes these types of tracks. And he's averaging the most DraftKings points per race here at Vegas at 75, 6.2 average finish, running position of 6.1, the best driver rating, 2 wins, 4 top 5s, the third most laps led, the most fast laps at 39. He's also ran well at these types of tracks this season. No wins, but 5 top 5s, some of the most fast laps, and some decent amount of laps led as well, and nearly 55 DraftKings points per race. And he's made 4 of the past 6 optimal lineups at Las Vegas. And the guy that's right below him, Joey Logano, he's actually made the past 4 optimal lineups at Las Vegas. I don't know if you guys saw that tweet. But yeah, definitely like Martin Truex Jr. He gets you a little bit of PD upside too, and he's cheaper than everyone we just talked about, Hamlin, Keselowski, and Harvick. So definitely like Martin Truex, one of my favorite plays on the slate. And then going down to Joey Logano, the most recent winner here in Las Vegas. He won the February race, and he's, like I just said, he's made the past 4 optimal lineups here at Las Vegas, and he just typically runs very well here. Starting 5th, so you don't get as much PD upside as Martin Truex, but he also has a little bit better track position to start the race. But an average finish of 4.3, which is only behind Brad Keselowski, 68 DraftKings points per race, average running position of 5th, which is the best out of all drivers. 2 wins, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10s, overall just very strong numbers, the second most laps led. He runs pretty well at these types of tracks. He's one of the fastest cars in average green flag speed this season. I definitely think he's a very solid play. I'm probably not going to get there in cash games just because I'd rather play someone like Truex in cash games paired with Kevin Harvick or something like that just to get a little bit more PD upside, or even Ryan Blaney, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I definitely like Joey Logano, one of my favorite dominators on the entire slate. He just runs super, super well at Las Vegas, and he won here earlier in the year. Then Kyle Busch, 10,000. He is starting second. I feel like a lot of people aren't going to be playing Kyle Busch. First of all, I wouldn't say it's his best track on the road. It is his home track. He is from Las Vegas, but recently the past 6 races only averaging 36.8 DraftKings points per race, average running position at 12th, 0 wins, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, only 4 laps led per race. And Kyle Busch has really just not been that dominant this season. Now, last week at Bristol, yeah, he was fantastic. He started in the rear of the field, worked his way all the way back up, and honestly could have won that race, but Joey Logano was kind of being a jerk at the end, blocking him a bit, but I mean, whatever. But I just don't see him getting around Kevin Harvick. But if he does, you're going to be looking pretty good in tournaments because I can't imagine he's going to have much ownership. Because, I mean, you got Chase Elliott, who's been by far stronger than him this season, right below him. William Byron's right below him, starting in 28th. Logano, Truex, Keselowski, Hamlin, Kevin Harvick are all starting above him with more PD upside. So, Kyle Busch, not a guy I'm going to have a lot, but I definitely like him in tournaments just as a pivot off of some of those guys up top, just in case he happens to get up front. So, I don't mind Kyle Busch, but definitely prefer him in tournaments over cash games. I wouldn't go there in cash games, but I think he's fine in tournaments. But again, not one of my favorite plays because if you're looking at how he's done at the 1.5 mile tracks this season, like he gets strong finishes, but he doesn't typically dominate. Average running position of 11.2, 0 wins, 3 top 5s, which is good. I mean, it's right up there with Truex, right below Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, but he's just not winning races or really dominating as much as some of these guys up top. But I think he's okay in tournaments. I would not full fade the guy, but kind of like Denny Hamlin, I'll be a little bit lower on him. And starting second, we don't get that PD upside as well. And I'd much rather play Chase Elliott, to be honest. He comes in at 9,700. He is starting third. Now, looking at his numbers at Vegas, he's got average DraftKings points of only 28.8 and average finish of 18.7. And he finished 26th here in the winter race. But keep in mind, he had one of the best cars on the track. He just happened to have an issue at the end of the race. Because in that race, he ended up leading 70 laps and had the most fast laps. He was looking very, very strong, but he kind of got screwed at the end. But average running position of 9.8 here, which is pretty good. 2 top 5s, driver rating near 100. And looking at his numbers this season at these types of tracks, he's been one of the best drivers. Running position of 8.2, 4 top 5s. He's got a win, 18 laps left per race, nearly 20 fast laps per race. And specifically at 1.5 mile track instead of intermediates, he's also been very strong at those as well. So Chase Elliott, only 9,700. Not sure why he's this cheap, so I have plenty of interest in Chase, and I think he can certainly be a potential dominator for cheaps. I mean, not like super cheap, but compared to the other dominators, he is pretty cheap here. Now, William Byron, 9,400. He is running 28th, and he was actually right behind Chase Elliott in fast laps in the Las Vegas race earlier in the year, which is kind of crazy. I think he had around 35 fast laps. Chase Elliott, I think, had around 40. But William Byron was super fast. He was second in average green flag speed. I mean, he was just doing super well. He's another guy where you shouldn't let the bad finish fool you, because he had one of the best average running positions in that entire race. Just things didn't really go his way at the end. But William Byron's running 28th. If that speed carries over, he should be a pretty good play here. I don't usually love paying nearly $10,000 for just a PD play, but with only 267 laps, it's not like we're at Bristol where we absolutely have to lock in these dominators. Like, he could very well score us around 50 or 60 points, especially if he picks up some fast laps. So I have some interest in William Byron for sure. He's a very safe play. I wouldn't say Las Vegas is one of his best tracks in the world. He's only got 5 races here, average running position of 16.2. But I think he's got top 10 upside here. What he did earlier in the season was very impressive here. He was super fast, and if that speed carries over, I think he's going to be a pretty good play. So definitely like William Byron. I don't like the price tag as much, but I certainly think he is viable. Now, Ryan Blaney at 9,100, he is starting 15th, and I actually think he's a very strong play. Like I said, I love Team Penske today, which I know didn't work out last week, but this is different circumstances again. And Blaney has been by far the fastest car at the intermediate tracks this season. He ranks first in average green flag speed at the intermediates, the 1.5 mile tracks, and in this tire combination. And actually, in this specific tire combination, he was first in average green flag speed both times, and he's just overall the fastest car. So I was looking at the average green flag speed cheat sheet. His average green flag speed at these track types is 4.4, and I believe the next guy is either Kevin Harvick or Chase Elliott, and they're like at 7 or 8 something. So he's just been blazing fast this track type. And when we were at the 1.5 mile tracks for a decent stretch earlier in the year, I believe it was in the summer around July, we were just playing Ryan Blaney pretty much every single week, and he was doing well for us pretty much each and every single week. This is a pretty good track for him, and he was first in average green flag speed at the first Las Vegas race earlier in the season, but an average finish of 9.2 here, running position of 9.4, driving him near 100. 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and I mean, he was very strong in the last race here. He's been crushing these types of tracks this season. The best average running position, the most Draftkings points per race, only behind Kevin Harvick. 5 top 5s, the second most laps led, the most fast laps, and he's crushed the 1.5 mile tracks as well, leading everybody in fast laps. Also second in laps led, and just overall very, very strong numbers. So Ryan Blaney, I know he's having a terrible playoffs, and I know he was eliminated, but he's not going to sandbag the race and not try. He should be able to have a pretty good race here. And I like that price tag. You get some PD upside, and it would not surprise me if he ends up getting up front, because he's just been so strong at the 1.5 mile tracks this season. So definitely a big fan of Blaney this weekend. Now dropping down to the 8K range, I think Jimmy Johnson is a decent pivot off of guys like Ryan Blaney and William Byron that I think will have some more ownership, because everyone else in this 8K range is kind of in a gross spot. But I do like the PD upside here with Jimmy Johnson. Now, Las Vegas, I wouldn't say is a great track for him. He's got 1 top 5 and 1 top 10 here recently, consistently inside the top 15, average running position of 13.5. But this season specifically, he has ran pretty well at these types of tracks. If we're looking at 1.5 mile tracks specifically, average finish of 14.6, running position of 15.3, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, and 4 top 15s. He should contend for a top 10 here today, and he's not today. I mean, I'm recording this video on Friday, but this weekend. And he's had a fast car recently too. He's been pretty strong at the intermediate tracks. I should turn my phone volume down. Sorry about that. But yeah, Jimmy Johnson, I think, is a fine pivot off Ryan Blaney and William Byron, but I don't think he's got the same dominator potential here. But I think he's a decent pivot. Kurt Busch, 8,700. He's starting 9th, Las Vegas. Not a very good track for him. He too is from Las Vegas, like Kyle Busch's brother, which obviously would make sense. But not a great track for him, averaging 7.6 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 25.8. Again, that comes with incidents. He's got an average running position of 14.3, which is much better, but he's only got 1 top 20 finish here the past 6 races, which is just gross. Now, this season at the 1.5s and the intermediate tracks, he's been very strong. He's got 9 top 10 finishes, which is actually more than any driver besides Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick. 3 top 5 finishes, an average running position of 10.8 with an average finish inside the top 10. And 1.5 specifically, also been pretty strong as well. So I think Kurt Busch is an okay tournament play. His numbers at Las Vegas aren't that great, but this season, I feel like recent track history has not been nearly as important as it usually is. And kind of looking how guys have done this season at these types of tracks, is the the better factor to look at. But I don't mind Kurt, but someone I'll probably have very, very low ownership on just because of where he's starting. Eric Jones also hasn't had the greatest track record here at Las Vegas, only averaging 14.8 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish of 22.5, running position of 18.1. 0 top 5s, only 1 top 10, and 3 top 15s. Yeah, he's probably going to get a decent finish, but at 8,500 starting 13th, we're going to need him to be able to try to crack the top 5 for the most part. And I just don't really think we're going to see it here from Eric Jones. Looking at how he's done at these tracks this season, he's only got 1 top 5, average running position of 13.4, average finish of 17.4. Like, he's an okay tournament play, but I really don't see him working out too much. So maybe like a minimal sprinkle of exposure on him, but nothing too serious. Now, Eric Almirola, 8,300, he is starting 4th. He's actually second in average green flag speed in this tire combination this season, and Las Vegas is a pretty good track for Eric. He's got an average finish of 11.8, no top 5s, but 3 top 10s, 5 top 15s, and he's ran pretty well at these track types this season. Now, starting 4th, it's going to make him only a GPP play because you can't really make him a cash play starting 4th at 8,300. But I actually do think there is slim top 5 potential, so I would not full fade him, even though it doesn't look great starting 4th. I think there's some upside there. He's ran it well at these track types this season. He's been fine at the 1.5 mile tracks. So Almirola, I think he's going to have some speed, and I think he can certainly top 10 here, and I think there's like a small chance he can get inside the top 5, and he could potentially dominate, because I remember when he was starting 4th, he had guys like Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, and I think Kyle Busch running in front of him, and then Eric Almirola was the guy that ended up leading most of the laps that day, which was crazy. I don't expect that to happen, but there's always an outside shot of that, so I don't mind Eric here in GPPs. Clint Bowyer, 8,100, he's starting 6th. Probably a guy you can feel pretty good about fading. I can't see him getting up front, and he's most likely going to finish outside the top 10. I mean, average finish is 17th here, running position of 15.1, only 1 top 10, 3 top 15s. Probably going to finish anywhere from 10th to 15th for the most part here. So Clint Bowyer, not really too much on my radar. He doesn't really run well at these types of tracks this season. He doesn't even have a top 10 so far. So Clint Bowyer is probably a guy you can feel pretty good about not having much exposure at all. MDB 7,900, he is starting 19th. He actually finished 2nd here back in February. And look, I like all of Team Penske, and MDB is pretty much part of Team Penske. He's kind of an affiliate with the Wood brothers. Now, most of these numbers are when he was in old equipment, so you really can't put too much stock into that. But he did finish 2nd here in the spring, and he's got an average finish of 15th at these types of tracks this season, 2 top 5s, running position of 13.7. Overall, some not bad numbers, and starting 19th, he should be a fine PD play. He should contend for a top 15. He's got top 10 speed as well, so MDB at 7,900 starting 19th. He's definitely a good pivot off of Ricky Stenhouse. I mean, obviously you can play both, but I like MDB quite a bit as a pivot because I think he's got higher finishing potential than Ricky Stenhouse, although Stenhouse did finish 2nd here earlier in the year, which I will talk about in a little bit, but don't think MDB is a bad play in the slightest. Now, probably the chalk of the week, we have Stenhouse 7,800 starting 33rd. Now, Ricky Stenhouse chalk is never something that feels that great, so if you want to go underweight on that, I totally understand it, but on paper, he's a pretty good play. Las Vegas is not a bad track for him. And like I said, he did finish 2nd here earlier in the year, and he ended up leading 30 laps. Now, they came with 0 fast laps, and he was only 22nd at average green flag speed. Kind of lucked his way into a 2nd place finish, and I was glad about it because I was very, very heavy on Stenhouse that week. He was one of my favorite plays. Fortunately, it worked out. Can't expect it to work out like that every single time. But he's not that bad here. He's got 2 top 10 finishes, 3 top 15s, and 3 top 20s. And if he just hits his average finish here, he's going to net us over 40 DraftKings points, and he will definitely take that 7,800. And you know, we got top 15 upside. And look, he's got top 10 potential too as well. I mean, he's done it 2 times here recently, so I don't hate Stenhouse. I mean, I love where he's starting, 33rd. It's just, man, it's hard to trust this guy. He doesn't typically run that well at these types of tracks. But I'll have some interest for sure. I mean, he's a little bit too cheap. I thought he was going to be closer to 9K, and I think he's definitely a fine play at that price point. Now, moving down to Austin Dillon, he's 7,600 starting 7th. Now, where he's starting, he's probably not going to make you want to play him. But I think he's fine in tournaments. He's actually ran very well at Las Vegas, and he's ran very well at these types of tracks this season. Like just at Vegas, he's got a top 5, a top 10, 4 top 15s, and overall some pretty strong finishes. But so far this year at the 1.5 mile tracks, he's got an average finish of 10.8, averaging 40 DraftKings points per race. He actually has a win, a little bit lucky there, but he still won the race. 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, and 7 top 15s. I think he should be a top 10 contender here, and if he can just kind of finish right around where he starts, that's not that bad, 7,600. I think he can probably pick up a few fast laps along the way, not really expecting it, but I think there's a potential for that. So Austin Dillon, I like him in tournaments. I don't obviously not a cash game play for where he's starting, but I think he's certainly fine in tournaments. And look, he could easily outscore Ryan Newman, who just tends to kind of run in the mid to lower to the back half. I mean, he just really hasn't been that fast this season. So definitely like Austin Dillon. It's just in tournaments, but not someone I go too crazy on. Ryan Newman, 7,400. He is starting 27th. Vegas, he's got fine numbers. I mean, 40 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 14.2, 2 top 10s and 3 top 15s. But the way he's ran this season, he's just kind of slow. I mean, running position of 21.2, average finish at 20.9, 0 top 5s, 0 top 10s, 3 top 15s, which isn't bad. At 1.5 mile tracks, it's pretty much the same kind of numbers. So, I mean, look, he's starting 27, so he's going to be a good PD play. But, I mean, you're just kind of paying 7,400 for a 15th, 20th place finish, which is kind of just gross for the most part. But he's fine. I mean, he'll grade out well in projections just because of how well he runs at Las Vegas compared to the other guys in the price tag, in the price range, I should say. And he's okay. He's a boring play, but he's fine. He shouldn't kill you. Alex Bowman, 7,300. He is starting 8th. I think he's interesting in tournaments. Now, he's really only ran well earlier in the season, but average running position of 12.4 here is not that bad. He's got a top 10, 3 top 15s. Hasn't let any laps here. But if you're looking at his numbers at the intermediate tracks this season, average finish of 19th, but his average running position is 10.3, which is fantastic. Driver rating near 100. He's got a win, a top 5, 2 top 10s, 30.1 laps led per race, and 17.4 fast laps. Also similar numbers to the 1.5 mile tracks. I think he's interesting in tournaments. I don't expect him to dominate in this race, but you might be able to sneak out a top 5, and he's also only 7,300, so I think he's a fine tournament play, but not something I'd go with in cash games. Christopher Bell, 7,100. He's starting 26. Hard guy to trust because these rookies can be very up and down. He only has one race here. He finished 33rd. He ran into some issues. Can't really look too much into it. But he should be able to gain a few spots here. If looking at his numbers at the intermediate tracks this season, average running position of 19.1, average finish of 19th, 3 top 10s, 4 top 15s, and 6 top 20s. The 1.5 mile tracks, he's actually got 3 top 10s at and a little smaller sample size because intermediate tracks we're throwing in tracks like Michigan and what's the other couple ones? Fontana, I think there's another one that I'm throwing in there as well. But Christopher Bell's fine. He's got top 15 upside, and we've seen him finish in the top 10 3 times already. So I think Christopher Bell is fine, starting 26th, decent PD play. Tyler Reddick, 6,900. He's starting 14th. I think he might end up being lower owned than Christopher Bell, but Tyler Reddick's been the much better performer at these types of tracks this season. Like in 11 races at intermediate tracks, he's got 10 top 20s, 7 top 15s, 4 top 10s, and 2 top 5s. Also an average finish of 12.6 and some overall pretty strong numbers. He also tends to pick up some fast laps as well. Sorry to pause the video quick, but I think we just got done talking about Tyler Reddick, so we'll go with Bubba Wallace here at 6,700. Had a strong finish here in the spring race, but overall his numbers really aren't that impressive at Las Vegas. Average running position of 25.1, 25.8 DraftKings points per race. But I do realize he has been running much better this season. But at the intermediate tracks, it's not been that pretty with an average running position of 22.4. He does have 2 top 10s and 4 top 15s, but overall not the strongest. I mean, he's not in that great of equipment, but starting 23rd, I could definitely see him making some noise in the 15th to 20th place range. So I think Bubba Wallace is fine, but not someone that's going to stand out as a great play this weekend just because he hasn't ran that well at intermediate tracks. Cole Custer, 6,600, starting 22nd. I actually like Cole Custer quite a bit. Only 2 races here, average finish of 22nd, but look, at the 1.5 mile tracks and intermediate tracks this season, he's actually not that bad. I mean, average finish of 19.3 isn't amazing, but averaging 30 DraftKings points per race, he's got a win, a top 5, 2 top 10s, 3 top 15s, and 7 top 20s in 11 tries. I think he's just a little bit too cheap here for being in pretty good equipment. So he's certainly one of my favorite value plays, even though I don't think he's like an amazing PD play, but he's got top 15 potential here. He should most likely finish inside the top 20. And I think he's actually a pretty strong player at that price point. So definitely on some Cole Custer at 6,600. Matt Kenseth at 6,500. You can't really look at the Vegas numbers because he's only got one race here the past 6 years. And again, things have changed, new car. But if you're looking at how he's done at these intermediate tracks this season, nothing too impressive. Average finish of 20th. Average running position of 22.1. 2 top 15s and 5 top 20s. Yeah, I think there's a decent chance he finishes anywhere from 15th to 20th. But it's kind of just the guy you're throwing in just to mix and match your cheap guys. Nothing too special down there. John Hunter Nemechek, 6,400, probably going to end up wrecking at some point because that's what he loves to do. He finished 24th here early in the year. For looking at his numbers at what he's done at these intermediate tracks, he's got 4 top 20s and 1 top 15, but an average finish of 23.4, running position of 22.7. He'll probably gain you a couple of spots, and he's got some top 20 upside, but I mean, he's just the kind of guy you're sprinkling at the most part. None of these guys down low really stand out, and you're kind of just mixing and matching these guys to go with their dominators and mid-range plays up top. Chris Buescher, 6,200, he's starting 16th. So I want to like Chris Buescher quite a bit. The problem is he's starting just a little bit too high, but I'm going to have some exposure to him because he typically runs pretty well at Vegas. In the past 6 races, he's got 5 top 20s and 3 top 15 finishes, which is better than anything that anybody else can say down here by far. Average finish to 17.2 and nearly 40 DraftKings points per race. And at these tracks this season, he's got 7 top 20 finishes out of the past 11 races, which is not that bad at all. Average running position of 19.7. I think it's likely he's going to lose a couple of spots, but at 6,200, he's got top 20 upside, and even if he does lose a spot or two, he could still potentially outscore some of these other guys. So I think Chris Buescher is a decent play. I don't love the starting spot, but I think he's a decent play. Michael McDowell, 6,100. He is starting 17th. Oh, it's just a guy that it's kind of tough to play Michael McDowell starting 17th. Like, I'd rather play Chris Buescher for $100 more. And Michael McDowell typically does not run that well at Vegas. He's got an average finish at 29th, only averaging 7.8 DraftKings points per race and 1 top 20 finish. And looking at his numbers at the intermediate tracks this season, yeah, he's had some strong top 20 finishes and even a couple of top 15s, but I just can't really see him getting a top 20 here for the most part. I can't project it. It can happen, yes, but I mean, I'd rather just play Chris Buescher. I mean, obviously you could play both, but I just don't really love Michael McDowell too much. I'll probably have just like a slim amount of Michael McDowell. Nothing too crazy. Then Ty Dillon, 5,900. He's starting 24th. He had a really good race here in the, I would say spring, but it was actually winter, but I guess it just sounds better. The spring race here in Las Vegas. But he's averaging 25 DraftKings points per race here. He's got 1 top 10, top 15, and 2 top 20s. You can't really expect too much out of Ty Dillon. He's had a pretty slow car here at the intermediate tracks this season. I mean, average finish at 23rd, running position at 24.4, 4 top 20 finishes. It hasn't really been anything too impressive, but I think he should be able to get a top 25, and at 5,900, that's not the worst thing in the world, so I don't mind Ty Dillon. Daniel Suarez, I mean, his car is just super slow. He's no longer starting 37th every week, which kind of hinders his upside because he's pretty much starting right around where he's going to finish each and every single week. He only has 1 top 20 finish, an average running position of 28.8, I mean, drive rating of 43.5. I mean, it's just kind of, it's a gross play. I mean, I think he's not the worst play in the world, but definitely not one of my favorite plays in the world either. You're kind of just mixing and matching these guys for the most part. I mean, none of these guys really stand out too much. Ryan Preece starting 21st, 5,600. He's just starting a bit too high for me. He's only got 3 races here. It hasn't really gone well for him. An average finish of nearly 30th. Driver rating of 47.4. Only 4.7 DraftKings points per race. Hasn't really ran well with these 1.5 mile tracks this season. So Ryan Preece starting 21st. It's gross. I mean, you can play him a little bit just because of the price tag. And he's got top 20 potential. But I think there's some downside there starting 21st for sure. Then Corey LaJoie starting 31st to 5,500. Probably going to end up being a little bit chalky just because he's dirt cheap and he's like the last viable guy that's not like complete trash like Timmy Hill, Fincham, Yaley, Golding, Bilicki, Hauff, Gase, Poole. I mean, all these guys are pretty awful for the most part. This isn't really one of those tracks where I love using scrubs for this either. So Corey LaJoie is my favorite just cheap option just because he's at least got potential. He actually finished well here in the spring race, and he's got 2 top 20s at Vegas, averaging 25.6 DraftKings points per race. He should be able to gain you a few spots. He's got 3 top 20s at intermediate tracks this season, average finish of 23rd, average running position of 26. So I don't mind Corey LaJoie. I like that price point. I like where he's starting. Then after that, I can't really recommend any of these guys. I think J.J. Yaley is maybe somewhat interesting. Looking at his past 3 races at Vegas, he's averaging average finish at 25.7 and a running position of 31.3. In this season, average finish of 30.5 and a running position of 31.5. So Yaley's probably the only scrub I'll have interest in just because of where he's starting in the price tag, and he's actually not been complete trash this season. Also, Brennan Poole, maybe. He's 46th, almost the bare minimum. He has 1 race here. He finished 29th, and if you're looking at this season at the intermediates, average finish at 31.5 and an average running position of 32.2. So maybe it's not the worst play. You could fit in another dominator in your lineup if you want. So I guess I don't hate Poole or J.J. Yaley, but outside of those guys, I really have no interest in any of these scrubs for the most part. But I think it's going to be it for the video, guys. If you made it all the way through, please let me know. I love hearing you all made it through the video. You guys are troopers for sure. If you want to support my content over on Patreon, check it out in the link below. You get access to all of my extra content. And if you want to follow me on social media, feel free to do that as well. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the Saturday live stream.